In today's video, we're looking at the latest trade rumors from around the league. Could a player like Horvat end up with the New York Islanders? Could Matt Dumba in Minnesota be a target of the Toronto Maple Leafs? It appears Nikita Zaitsev is likely done in Ottawa. We'll discuss that possibility and where he may end up. Plus, we have news from the NHL waiver wire, all kinds of roster news and injuries as well. All that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL news and some rumors to take a look at here today. We're going to be talking about some key players like Horvat, Erik Karlsson, Nikita Zaitsev, Jacob Chychrun, and Matt Dumba, to name a few here. But first up, news from the NHL waiver wire. Tyson Jost of Minnesota is on waivers. He's not off to a great start this year with the Minnesota Wild, recording 3 assists so far. Obviously, a number of games played now and only a -4 rating on the plus minus. Certainly a player that Colorado felt comfortable giving up last year at the trade deadline. He goes to Minnesota and hasn't really found it. Unfortunately, he's a first round pick from the past that has not lived up to expectations and looks like his career is having trouble here. So I don't know how much longer he's going to be able to remain in Minnesota, or where might the next team B, or is he going to get another opportunity? It's hard to say. For right now, I'm going to say he's probably going to clear waivers. Most likely, we'll find out 3 o'clock tomorrow. Used to be noon, then it got bumped back this season to 2 o'clock Eastern time. So depending on where you live, 3 o'clock my time in the Atlantic region, 2 o'clock Eastern, and of course earlier out west. So certainly we'll see where Jost ends up, or he can be demoted, and what the future holds for him. Hard to say, but I'm not sure he's got a bright future in Minnesota. We have lots of roster news here today. Lots of players being demoted, a few players being called up. Montreal Canadiens have announced today that prospect Emil Heineman is being loaned back to Sweden, so he's heading to play in the SHL. So he'll spend the rest of the season over there. And Rem Pitlick's also been sent back down to the American Hockey League in Laval. The Vancouver Canucks have also sent back Will Lockwood after a brief stint in Vancouver. The Minnesota Wild have also demoted back Adam Beckman. Nikita Zaitsev of Ottawa has now been officially demoted to the minors. That was something that hadn't happened here yet. Of course, he cleared waivers, I think it was about a week or so ago. And at that point, Ottawa didn't demote him immediately. It wasn't quite clear what was going to happen. Now there is word that the team has given consent to Zaitsev's agent to try to find a trade if possible. But it's no secret that Pierre Dorion, the GM of the Senators, has been actively trying to find a trade for Zaitsev dating back to the summertime, and has not really ever materialized. Obviously, he's had a rough go. Obviously, he started off decent in Toronto, got himself a long-term contract, and has had a really difficult time living up to that. Of course, he was later involved in the big trade that between the Senators and the Leafs. I know for Sens fans, they were not thrilled with taking up, but they got rid of some unfavorable deals themselves. And it seemed like in the beginning like it might be okay, but as time's gone on, a lot of those not so great features have kind of crept back into Zaitsev's game, and he's finally been in the spot with Ottawa where he's not in the lineup. It just took a while for the Senators, Blue Liners, a lot of their young prospect D especially, to kind of become ahead of them on the depth chart, so they could put some other players ahead of him on the lineup. So I'm not sure what the future holds here for Nikita Zaitsev. He still has another year left on the contract. I do think if it's possible that he can't be traded, if Ottawa can't find another team to take that on without paying too much of a premium, I do think it's possible that a buyout will be likely in the offseason. By that point, he'll be down to 1 year left on the deal, not a lot of actual cash, and could be something that Ottawa's willing to do. So we'll see, but I'm not sure if his agent's going to be able to do any more work than Pierre Dorion's already done. He was for the longest time rumored that the Coyotes would take him in a part of a package for Jacob Chychrun, but the price tag has been way too high and it's never materialized. Obviously, the Coyotes want to send Chychrun to the Senators and take Zaitsev. It's probably going to push the price up more, taking a bad deal back. So obviously that's been the sticking point why that's never materialized. Of course, Jacob Chychrun himself, we know, is scheduled to get back into action hopefully in the coming week. That should intensify and pick up trade talks around the Coyotes defenseman here again. Of course, it's been quiet for the past probably 3-4 weeks, really, since he has yet to make an appearance this season. There was lots of talk in the summer, some talk in training camp, and then it kind of got quiet since he wasn't ready to play and still recovering from an off-season wrist surgery. Once he gets back into action and hopefully has a good start, that'll kind of intensify interest, I'm sure, which will hopefully lead to more conversations and give us, I guess, a little bit more to talk about on that subject and hopefully lead to a deal sooner than later. Now, there's some more roster moves here as well. The Maple Leafs have recalled Wayne Simmonds and sent back Mac Hollowell. So obviously I suspect they intend on getting Simmonds into a game here, possibly this weekend. The Blackhawks have also recalled defenseman Ian Mitchell back to the NHL roster here as well. We have some goalie injury news. We saw Buffalo Sabres goaltender Eric Comrie be injured in the Sabres game against the Ottawa Senators the other night. He was injured after his own defenseman, Rasmus Dahlin, shoved one of the Senators forwards, cutting to the net right into him, causing him to suffer, which appeared to be a knee injury. We don't have a definitive timetable right now, but the Sabres, all they've said so far is he will be out for multiple weeks. So that's certainly not good news. I mean, Craig Anderson is going to be expected to kind of hold down the fort. The Sabres are on a losing streak. I believe it's at 7 or 8 games now. And obviously losing one of their goalies is not going to help matters. Of course, they did recall Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, and he hasn't had the greatest start in the AHL this year, but we'll see if things can improve for him. I'm not sure how much opportunity he'll get to play. Obviously, Anderson will probably carry the bulk of the load, except for perhaps on back-to-backs over the next few weeks here. Carolina Hurricanes goalie Freddie Anderson as well is going to remain out for some time, but we don't have a definitive timetable. Head coach Rod Brindamore, all he would comment and say that he's not close, but Freddie was injured in practice back earlier this past week, and we don't really know a lot of details about what's going on with him, just that something happened, he's unable to play, and he's not close, so that's certainly not good. They've also recalled Peter Kachikov from the minors, and he's had a decent start here, so we'll see. But Freddie Anderson could be a while getting back. And in a scary situation as well the other night in Dallas last night, goalie Scott Wedgwood ended up having to be stretchered off the ice. It was kind of a weird play. It didn't look like anything bad. It looked fairly innocent, but when he was stretched out, it appears as though he suffered a really bad back spasm. It was unclear what had happened. He was on the ice, on his belly stretched out, and then you could kind of see he was in a lot of pain in reaching towards his low back. And really, it was obviously bad to the point that he couldn't get up. So, from somebody myself who I have had dealt with some back issues in the past, I don't think I ever had a back spasm that intense, but I have had some before, and it is very demobilizing. It's hard to move. And in his case, it must have been pretty severe. So I would hope that in his case, because of the nature of the issue, it shouldn't keep him out too long. But your concern, of course, with any kind of a back injury is really is it going to be able to get worked out and stay out? I know with myself, I've had to be careful with mine and have a good routine and regular treatments over the years just to make sure that I don't run into recurring issues. So we'll see. I mean, obviously he's in good health, professional athlete, tip-top shape. So it shouldn't be too bad, but we'll see where Wedgwood goes with that. We want to wish him a speedy recovery because it looked scary at the time when he was not able to get up off the ice. Now onto the trade section of the video. There's reports out of the New York Islanders Hockey Now and Stefan Rosner that the Islanders are apparently, according to sources, very interested in Canucks captain and centerman Bo Horvat. Could Horvat be a good fit on Long Island? I have to think that looking at their roster, I tend to agree that probably would be the way he's scoring right now. I probably would have said a scoring winger before, not necessarily a center. They do have some decent centermen, of course. They have Matthew Barzal, Brock Nelson. Sometimes he's been playing a little bit of wing lately, I believe, but typically he's a centerman. You have Pajot in the number 3 spot. So, I mean, at the same time, not to say that they couldn't find an upgrade. They could move Nelson to wing. Josh Bailey has been a healthy scratch in a few recent games, and it's kind of led some to believe that he may be on his way out. Of course, he's had subpar performance, fair to say, this year. Even last year, he didn't have a good year. He struggled last year. There was a lot of talk that Lamoriello tried to find a way to move that contract, but has not been able to do so because he does have another year beyond this one, making $5 million. So it's not an easy thing to do. But at the same time, Rosner is projecting that a potential trade involving Vancouver and the New York Islanders could involve Bailey going back to Vancouver to help with the money situation from a cap perspective, and that in return the Canucks would also receive a first-round pick this year, probably a mid-round pick, maybe third or fourth rounder, and maybe a top prospect like a power forward, William Dufour, who just turned pro after winning the Memorial Cup last year with the St. John Sea Dogs. Dufour has certainly had a record-setting season in St. John with the Sea Dogs, won some awards, had a fantastic year, get to play in the Team Canada World Junior Championship team. Of course, that played in the summertime to redo the tournament after it was shut down last Christmas. So he had a real solid year. He's a really promising prospect, has a really good shot. Obviously, like many prospects, has a few things to work on, but I do think it's possible they would consider using him in a trade. They do need to be careful here, though. They don't have a lot of top promising prospects. They do have a few other guys as well on that Bridgeport team, like Ishikov, Ratu, that could possibly be a fit there. But at the same time, maybe moving one for a top player might be an okay idea. But I just wonder how they would structure their lineup if they go after Horvat. I mean, Horvat, the way he's scoring right now, could certainly be a big help to the Islanders. He would also fit with their defensive structure, given the fact that he's such a strong two-way player. I do wonder where they would kind of put everybody, though, in the mix if he were to, make that trade. Now, the other question here is, would he be interested in signing a longer-term contract with the New York Islanders? Because clearly they're not going to make this move if he's not going to extend. It wouldn't make any sense. They had a good start to the season, but you don't see Lamoriello being the type that tends to, give away a lot for a short-term project like that unless they can sign him. So we'll have to wait and see, but it's an interesting choice for this player to end up in the Islanders. I mean, like I said, I do see some good fits there. But earlier in the year when I said the Islanders needed more scoring, I would have probably predicted it or projected a different player, but they might be able to make it work given what he brings to the table. So let me know your thoughts on that possibility. Could Erik Karlsson obviously end up in the Eastern Conference again, not necessarily back to the Ottawa Senators? There's reports today from Elliotte Friedman suggesting that a surprise team that could very well be in the mix for Karlsson's services if he is indeed moved might be the Florida Panthers. Could Karlsson go from one coast to the other? He's had a phenomenal year this year. He's at 28 points, I believe he's at in 19 games. Absolutely just tearing it up, even surpassing some of his old totals when he was a more dominant NHL defenseman, leading the Sens to the the Eastern Conference final back in 2017. He wasn't even putting up numbers like that. So I wonder if he is motivated to maybe get a fresh start, but at the same time, he does remain committed to the Sharks until that time that a potential trade does happen. I do wonder how the Panthers would fit this in cap-wise, though. I mean, when I heard Friedman mention the Panthers as a surprise team, I do wonder they'd have to move at least one decent-sized contract out, and of course they'd have to have San Jose retain some money as well. So that could certainly get interesting. I mean, outside of guys like Ekblad and Barkov and Tkachuk, I don't know that really anybody's too untouchable, so to speak. I think they'd love to move Bobrovsky, to be completely honest. That $10 million goalie contract, I don't think they're as fond of it as the previous regime who signed it, but that could prove very, very difficult as well. But do you see Erik Karlsson being a fit in Florida? A surprise team, according to Elliotte Friedman, that we should watch here in the coming weeks as talks might intensify around that player. Nick Ritchie's another guy to watch as well. The Arizona Coyotes had a hot start this year. You could throw his teammate Shane Gostisbehere probably into the mix as well as we get later into the season. But could Ritchie end up with Gostisbehere's old team with the Philadelphia Flyers? That's a real possibility that we could see here, according to multiple reports. It makes sense that Ritchie could be a good fit there. We know, based on the Flyers' style of play, a big, strong winger. Obviously, he's had his chance to be more of a power forward type before, and he's had his struggles. Like, he didn't get the job done in Toronto, went to Arizona, but he scored at a much better rate down there. So could Florida come calling, or Philadelphia, to come calling to add a big strong forward to the mix. The Flyers had a really good start to the season, and they have cooled off here as of late. I don't think they're going to be in any kind of a hurry to make that kind of move, but certainly somebody to watch as the player like Ritchie likely does get moved ahead of the NHL deadline. And lastly here, Matt Dumba. Could he be a fit with the Toronto Maple Leafs? There's numerous reports, including Elliot Friedman, mentioning to watch Dumba and possible interest from Toronto. We know that the Minnesota Wild haven't had a great start to the season. We also know they're in a really tight salary cap situation, and there's a pretty good possibility that a player like Dumba is not in Minnesota next year. A good chance he could leave as an unrestricted free agent if a trade does not materialize. He does have a modified no trade, so he can block a few teams, but for the most part, this shouldn't be too difficult to do. Dumba's production has certainly tailed off as well, not putting up a lot of points this year, so he's certainly not really creating a ton of value for himself. If a team is going to make a trade involving Dumba, then to me, they're going to base that more so on the past, when he was certainly putting out a better production and playing a stronger game. But Matt Dumba is a player that will be certainly interesting in free agency this coming off season, assuming he doesn't extend with a team that he gets traded to or something like that. But he's a right shot defenseman, and they tend to come at a bit of a premium here. But like I said, his value has certainly tailed off a bit in the past couple of years when a lot of his teammates and defense partners have been signed to longer term contracts, which is kind of boxing him out of getting a deal with Minnesota himself. So we'll see where things go. But do you see him being a good fit where they have the Jake Muzzin LTIR pool to possibly add another top 6 defenseman, ideally a top 4 guy? I mean, theoretically, they could place him maybe with Morgan Riley. I'm not sure where they'd put him. They could put him on the second pair as well. They don't have a lot of right shot D in Toronto. The depth on that side of the D cores is not great. Obviously, Justin Hall is probably for that reason that he has not been traded as of yet, because they don't have a lot of players in that regard. Of course, having Sandin and Liljegren back in the mix does help with both sides of the blue line here as of late. And that's the other thing that I mentioned before that I think you need to watch with the Leafs. And right now, it's looking like a veteran to come in via trade is a strong possibility, unless they feel like those two guys can really step up and handle more of a responsibility as the season goes on. But as of right now, it doesn't look like that's probably going to be the case. But let me know your thoughts on all of today's news down in the comments, and we'll discuss further. Hope you enjoyed this video, which is a little bit different today. Not recording in my normal spot here in the house, just some different circumstances. Really late. I've had a really long day. You get to enjoy our Christmas decorations here behind me, so I hope you're all getting prepped up here for the holidays. I know it's nearing American Thanksgiving as well, so certainly hoping everybody's going to have a good time there. So let me know your thoughts. If you're new to this channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the entire news and rumors from all 32 teams in the NHL. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.